You don't realize how stupid and how mean people can be until you have a job in customer service. What's up, my BBs? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is something I have tried filming before and was unsuccessful. So I'm going to be talking about why I left Starbucks. This is kind of a story time, a rant, an explanation, a couple different things in one. I wanted to start, I guess, with a little disclaimer that I have no hate for Starbucks. It's possible in the future I could work for them. Hopefully this doesn't destroy that, but like, I enjoyed working there for a long time, and part of the reason that it wasn't a good fit anymore was because of me and my mental health and the issues I was having in life, so that definitely did play a part at the end. So I just wanted to start off with that. Again, no hate in my heart for Starbucks. I still get Starbucks every day, literally every day. So basically, one of the biggest issues I had was with happy hour. So for those of you who don't know, happy hour is usually, it's when it's a special deal. Usually it's for a couple hours from like 2 to 5 or like 3 to 5, whatever. And it's usually buy one, get one free, buy one, get one half off. A lot of the time it's for Frappuccinos. We call it Frappy Hour. Frappuccinos, one time it was like macchiatos. Sometimes it's like all Frappuccinos are $3.50 or whatever. And the problem is, Frappuccinos, without getting into too much detail, I would say about 75% of baristas would agree that they are the most difficult drink to make. The most difficult drink to make. If you have to choose between a Frappuccino and a latte, get the latte. It's just, yes, they're yummy. Yes, they have a lot of sugar, but they also require the most steps. I would say most drinks at Starbucks average around 3 or 4 steps, maybe even less. Frappuccinos require about 7 steps. And so they're just very time consuming. But Starbucks likes to have happy hour with Frappuccinos because they're also usually the most expensive. And so with such a high volume of Frappuccinos, it's very stressful, especially if you're on bar. When I say on bar, I mean making the drinks. And it's just, like, I'm trying not to get too technical and just give explanations, but it just is such a stressful situation. If you've worked for Starbucks, you know. And if you've sometimes walked into a Starbucks, you know. We are usually very unhappy. I would dread if I had to work Frappy Hour. Towards the end of my career there, they knew not to schedule me for Frappy Hour because I would just have such a bad panic attack. Because people expect to get their drinks in the same amount of time as they usually would, and that's just not the case when you're doubling or even quadrupling the amount of orders we usually have. And yes, you could say, well, don't they give you extra people? Sometimes. So when we're not staffed, it's even worse. I once had a situation that I'll talk about later where there were 2 baristas and 1 supervisor, and that's it for the beginning of a happy hour. And usually we need 2 people on bar, 2 people ringing, and like at least 1 other person. So we usually need like 5 to 7 people. And the problem is, Starbucks doesn't always give us the resources for that. They don't always allow us to have extra people. But then there's also the whole law of diminishing marginal return from econ. It's basically like, we can only have so many people. Where too many people, we would just be crowded and things wouldn't work. We wouldn't be able to move and make the drinks efficiently. So that's the issue with that. And so kind of going off of that, Starbucks likes to create recipes that go with the times and that people, like, they're very extra, I guess I'll say, with the recipes. Unicorn Frappuccino. Unicorns were a big thing back then, I guess. But, so kind of going off the Unicorn Frappuccino, like I said, Frappuccinos usually had about 7 steps. This one probably had about 9 or 10. There were so many extra things. And so the launch day, they didn't give us enough people. They didn't expect it to be as busy. It was one of the most stressful shifts of my life. I closed that night, and usually it would take about 45 minutes to an hour to close. I think it took us about an hour and a half to 2 hours to close that night because nothing could get done. The supervisor couldn't do any of the counting and the inventory during the shift that they had to do. There was like an extra big count. They made the launch day the same day that the supervisor has to do a huge inventory count, and it was just so stressful. And also, like, there was something called the sparkling berry sangria. It was like apple juice and passion tea with like this special syrup, and it was sparkling. We would put it in this machine that I would call the sparkler, but it was like the carbonation machine. And you could only do one drink at a time with that, and it was so fizzy, and people, again, they would want their drink in the same amount of time, and it just doesn't work. So going off of that, the way customers treated us. This kind of goes with any job in customer service. You don't realize how stupid and how mean people can be until you have a job in customer service, period. I've had a video before, I think, sharing some Starbucks stories, but people are just nuts. And the amount of times like a customer have said something to me and I had to go in the back and like cry about it because I don't know, I don't know if people are gonna say, well, don't work in customer service if you can't take the heat, but like, no one should be treated that way. There's one thing that sticks out that was like my last straw, because I was already so sick of the way customers were treating me, because people without their morning coffee can get mean. And this one guy was trying to cheat the system with something, getting like a short coffee. He wanted an extra cup. He also wanted like a short cup full of milk. Again, like I said, trying to cheat the system. But he wasn't being very clear. And so I was like, well, what would you like me to do? And he was like, I'd like you to do what I tell you to do. So there's a few different issues I have with this. One, I am doing a service for you. Yes, you're paying me, but I am controlling what you put in your body. So is it really smart for you to be mean to me? That's kind of like the joking part of it. Also, I'm a human. I'm an employee. I get that I'm doing something for you, but I'm a human. You don't treat people like that. And also, the card that I don't usually like to play, like, I'm a young woman. Like, how can people think they can treat women like that? Treat anyone like that? Like I said, it's just not right. I guess I don't think I got paid enough for the things that I would do and the way I got treated. So I'm a barista. I was a barista. It was my job. Make drinks, ring up customers, clean when needed. I'm not a fucking waitress. There was a time when I would work morning rush and we would have so many mobile orders that we would have a person standing on the other side of the bar handing out the mobile orders so the bar area, the handoff area wouldn't get too crowded. And so that was my job one day. And I got all the mobile orders out. There was none left to give out. It was, I guess, a little bit of a slow time. My manager came over to me and said, well, why don't you go around to the tables and ask anyone if they need anything? It was about 7:30 a.m. The people working at the tables don't want me to talk to them. They don't want to be disturbed, and also, it's not my fucking job. So they kind of, it's not the fact, people, I'm trying to think of what people are gonna say. They're gonna be like, well, why don't you just do your job? Like, do what you're told, Allie. Like, why, like, this is what you're getting paid to do. The job drastically changed from when I started versus when I left. They put so much of an emphasis on customer connection, and they stopped caring about the baristas. And I remember I ran into my district manager, like, since I left, and we were talking, and he asked me if I wanted to come back. And I'm just like, no. And he asked me why, and I told him that. I said, not enough cares on the baristas, too much on customer connection. And he was, like, shocked by the fact that I said that. He was like, that's good feedback. It's like, yeah, that's good feedback. Are you gonna do anything about it? Because, getting back to what I said earlier, I once had to email this said district manager, I don't know what I'm doing with my finger, because I was so fed up with the way things were going at my store. My manager was leaving in about a month or two, but we didn't know that at the time. So he kind of just stopped giving two shits about everything. And so things were just being very poorly done. Like, we weren't always fully staffed for shifts. It was awful. Everything was so stressful. We were running out of things, and again, people blame us for those things. They're like, oh, you don't have any home milk? You haven't had it in a while. Why is that? It's like, you know what? Not my fault. It's kind of like when people get mad at us for the prices. You think I make the prices? Starbucks is a big corporation. I don't make the prices. Whew, I'm getting heated. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I worked at Starbucks for 2 years, and that may not seem like a long time to be at a job, but I started there when I was 17. And so 2 years at a job at that time was like a lot for me, or at least in my opinion, it was a lot. I worked at Cold Stone for a year before that, and so working at a place for 2 years, like, I was very invested in it, I guess. And I knew what I was doing, and I was very confident in my barista abilities. And so another thing, customers would like look down on me because I am young. And so they think I don't know what I'm doing. So they would talk to me in a condescending way, and it would piss me off. Back in the day when we would write the cups instead of stickers, I couldn't start writing a cup until I knew what size cup. And so people would start their order and I'd be like, what size? And they'd be like, whole milk. Or they'd be like, I'd like a grande latte, hotter iced with 2 pumps this, 2. Okay, I can't start your customizations if you don't tell me what cup I need. Again, getting pretty heated. But it was just something that, it was one of my pet peeves, honestly. And just like I said, people would talk to me in a condescending way. They would just think I don't know what I was talking about. And so back to my manager and the district manager, I ended up sending an email to the district manager, and I was telling him about how there was that one occasion where we had 2 baristas and only 1 supervisor, and we had about 50 customers per half hour. And that's a very high volume. At least for my store it was. We did not have the people to deal with that. And so when I think my manager came in later that day, and I said to him how miserable it was because of how few people we had, and he literally went, okay. Like, yeah, there's nothing he can do now, but have a little remorse, would you? Like, you put us through hell. So the second thing I emailed about was, so there's something called an open shift, which usually the manager would schedule either someone from another store because there wasn't a person to work that shift, or someone who was training. There was one day my manager didn't schedule anyone, so I was called in, and he didn't realize it until like the supervisor came in about an hour before the shift was supposed to start. So I got called in, and I didn't have to go in, but I did because I didn't want to leave them with only 2 closers. I know how that feels, and like I cared about my coworkers. And so I walked in a bit irritated, and I was kind of like half jokingly, half kind of seriously being like, damn, like why'd you do that? Like you didn't schedule anyone. And so when I mentioned this to him, he completely like shut down on me. And then later I heard that he had said to one of my coworkers, like, damn, like someone can't make a mistake. It's like, okay, yes, I understand a mistake once in a while, but this is something that would happen, maybe not this particular situation, but just the lack of, just with the amount of issues. I don't want to say that he was the cause of, but he is the manager. He does have a job to do, and I felt like he was not fully doing everything that he needed to do because he just didn't care anymore. So I sent this really long email. Like, I feel really underappreciated and unsupportive. I did not have this problem at my prior store. I never got a response to this email. Not even when he came in, never an acknowledgement, never anything. So that was my little Starbucks rant. I don't know if people are gonna think I'm just complaining a lot or I should have manned up. I don't know. But I really did love working there for a long time. These issues that I had probably only happened or were at least only very stressful my last couple months there. Maybe my last like 6 months there. Or at least I had some issues. And so I ended up leaving that store and going back to the store I was at before. And I was happier for a while, and then they started upping the customer connection type stuff, and that's when I started to leave. Not because I don't want to connect with customers. I'm fine asking people how their day is and really connecting with them, but when it's times where there's more important things to do and where customers don't want to be talked to, if that makes sense, I draw a line. And so I didn't fight it. I didn't do anything. I left. So I wasn't gonna just not do my job. If they decided to change my job and make me do extra things and keep my paycheck the same, I'm gonna leave. And that's what I did. I left. I got another job and I left. And honestly, yeah, sometimes I miss it. It was fun, like having the endless opportunities of different types of drinks to make and meeting all the different types of people. I still go into my old stores and see the regulars and say hi, and I still talk to my old coworkers, and I made some great friends. I met some amazing people, but then my mom still asks me, would you go back? And right now the cons outweigh the pros, and it's just not worth it to me. So that's my little rant slash storytime slash explanation. People always ask me why I left Starbucks, and this is the reason. And this is such a big topic because my name was Blazing Barista. It was Basic Barista. Barista was a big part of my identity. So I wanted to give this little explanation on why that is not part of my identity anymore. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. So go subscribe if you haven't. I put out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday, and I'll see you guys next time.